So now we're ready to start decorating our buildings. And you of course can choose any kind of decorative paper, but I love this Graphic 45 Twas the Night Before Christmas paper, and so that's what I'm using on my buildings. I've used a 6x6 pad quite extensively, and then some of the more graphic designs from the 8x8 pad. So that's what it's taken me to do this project, basically one of each. So here are a couple of buildings that I've already done, and just to give you an idea of how I've chosen to decorate them. Now the cutting and layout guide has a sheet with all the windows in there, and I'll show you that in more detail when we get to adding windows and doors. But what I've done is add decorative paper to each of the four sides, leaving about a 1/16 of an inch reveal. I've inked the structures first, excuse me. Added a roof, which I have put some shingles on using either decorative scissors or punches, and that's basically it. And so you can, and on the door I've added a number, just because this is a countdown to Christmas project. And I've just kept things simple and numbered the buildings as I numbered them to build them. So they're all scattered. The numbers aren't in any order when you look at the village. And then here is just building number 20, slightly different windows on it, some smaller windows, and a different punch used on the roof. So let's get started. I have here building number 6. And the first thing I want to do is measure to cut my paper. And this is a square building, but still I follow the same process no matter if it's square or rectangle. And that's to first measure the rectangular sides. And this one measures 1 3/4 inches. And so I like a 1/16 of an inch reveal. So, sorry for the glare. So I'm going to do that at 1 5/8 inch wide, and I always write things down because I get distracted and then I forget what I'm doing. And then measuring up from the bottom, it is 2 3/4. So again, I'm going to take off 1/8 of an inch, so I'll have my 1/16 inch reveal. So that would be 2 5/8 inch tall. Now, it's for the paper that I'm using here, on this building, it may not matter which direction it is, but some of the paper is directional. In this paper line, it has words on it, so I always make sure I write down, which is the tall or the vertical direction, so that I don't cut things and then have them going the wrong direction. The same thing for the gable end. This, of course, since this is a square building, it's again 1 3/4 inch wide, which I'll cut to 1 5/8. And then measure all the way up from the base to the top, tippity top of the gable. And in this case, it's 1 2 3 5/8. And then we'll subtract our 1/8 inch, so that would be a 3 1/2 inch rectangle. I always start with a rectangle even for the gable end. I find it easier to cut, and I'll show you how I do that. So let me do a little cutting over here. I'm using you can play around with your paper so that you get the best use out of it, and then you will be able to cover all the buildings easily, depending on your choices, of course, with the 2 paper pads. Let's see, I need 1 5/8, so I have my trimmer over here to the right. 1 5/8, I'll just cut a couple of 1 5/8 inch strips to begin with. And then I need 2 5/8. And 2 3 1/2. Okay, so I have my paper cut for this building. So I like to ink the walls first, and I've been just using, dependent on if they are red or green, I've been using Barn Door Distress Ink, which of course, oh here it is, and Forest Moss for the green. And then if I need a little darker red, sometimes I've used Aged Mahogany. Those are all distress inks. And I just come on the edges here. Put this where I can reach it. On this, there's no need to do the tops of the roof because we're going to add a separate roof piece on. So just come and do the edges however you care. This is how I like to do it. Okay, that's pretty good. So sometimes in where this one seam is, there's a little bit of craft showing, and I just you can either, if you have these distress markers, you can just give it a little squeeze and take the marker tip in there if anything is showing to cover that up. Not necessary, but just one of those little touches. Okay, and then also, oh, we need to ink these pieces, but we'll wait 1 second to do that. So we need to cut the 2 gable ends, and when I make these buildings, sometimes the 2 gable sides are not exactly the same, so I like to write on 1A, just the letter A, or something, you know, any kind of mark that helps you remember which piece is going to go on which. And this paper happens to have writing on the back, so that helps me make sure that everything is oriented in the same direction. Alright, so I've marked A and A here, and then with some repositionable tape, and this isn't absolutely necessary to have this tape, it just makes life a little easier. I take and put just a little dab of it down here on the bottom, and then line it up so that I can see that 1/16 of an inch reveal on the 2 sides and the base. And now it's held in place, so I can take my pencil and mark along the 2 triangles here. Now, obviously, if you didn't, you would just hold it in place if you didn't have repositionable tape. Now, excuse me, because I like that 1/16 of an inch reveal, that line, if I cut exactly on that line, it would line up exactly with the edge of the building. So what I'm going to do is cut inside of that line and just gauge that 1/16 of an inch. You can draw it, you know, take a ruler and measure it if you'd like, but you know, it's not the most critical thing, so I just eyeball that. And then repeat the process for the other side. I don't find that there's any need to mark it side B. You know, it's either marked or it's not marked. Again, leave that 1/16 of an inch reveal. Come with your pencil and mark the 2 diagonals. And then if you hold on to the little corner, then you can kind of guide your scissors along that line. Depending on how big that gable end is, you know, sometimes you might have to employ a different technique. Alright, so now we have our 4 sides cut, and we can, I like to do a little more inking just to finish off the edges, personal preference of course. I think it just gives it a nice finished edge. Some of these papers are mostly, or all green and white, or all red and white. The paper, that's the papers from the 6x6 pad. The papers that I'm using from the 8x8, and this is one of the 8x8s, a lot of them have multicolors in there, so you know, lots of options to mix and match your colors and have a little variety. Alright, so there's our inking completed. You can attach these any way you care to. I find it fastest to just use some, a little bit of white glue. Just around the edges. The thing I like about using the white glue is that it gives me a second to reposition it if I don't have it in the right place. And what you saw me do right there was just double check that I did have side A matched up with side A. And then put on the other side. If you get excess glue, just wipe it off and put it on a cloth or something so that it's not on your hands when you go to put the next piece on. Okay, and our final side here. Alright, so now we have our sides on, and let's put the roof on. So each building had a roof, and we cut those out to begin with, and then all I did was to prep this was score it down the middle on the longer side. Whichever's the longer side is the side that gets scored down the middle. Is that always true? I think so. Just hold up if you hold up the roof to the building, you'll see which side needs to be scored. And then I did a little inking. I decided, since I was going to use a red color in the base, that I was going to have a green roof. That's, you know, obviously personal preference. And then I've already prepped some roof shingling. You could just use decorative paper here, or you could, as I've done, I've used cardstock, and on this one I used a punch on the edges and just kind of layered them to make like shingles, figuring out what sizes would work best. These are the shingles for a different building. Here are the right ones. So So I made these to fit on this building. I have just a teeny bit of overhang to give some interest, but that's optional. And then just use some white glue on them. I have a 1/16 of an inch reveal like I commonly have. And again, I'm using the white glue so I can shift it around if I want to a little bit. Alright, there's the roof. Now we'll just add some glue to each side here of the top. And just use there's a little bit of an overhang planned on for each of these, so I'm just using my fingers here to feel if I got it about centered. And now just holding it for a few seconds until that glue sets up. Now I would put it on my mat and see that I'm keeping it pretty square. I'm checking to see is my overhang pretty even on all the corners while I still have time to rearrange. So that looks pretty good. Just hold that there for a couple seconds. This quick dry glue sets up pretty fast. And then I've cut a little ridge cap. This is just, I built my roof shingles in 2 places, so I have an undecorated edge here at the top. So all I did was I punched a little strip on 2 sides and scored it down the middle, and then I can glue it in place up here. And I see this one needs a little bit of inking. Okay, that's better. And I'll just add a little glue along top ridge here. Put that in place. So that's our basic house, and now it's time to add windows and a door. Now I thought about different things to do for this, using acrylic, and also using some dies. I have some little mini window dies. This is a little sample from Sizzix die that cuts these little 4-pane, but I thought that was kind of too large of a scale for this, but you know, that's an option. This one has some acrylic behind it. I also started thinking about how many windows there are, how many buildings there are, and how many windows you could think about having, and I didn't want to be putting windows on here forever. So what I decided to do was print up some windows on my computer, and I've included these pages in the cutting and layout guide, and so I made them in both green and red, and there are some that have 4 panes, some that have 2 panes, and some that have 1 pane. Now these rectangles here I used for the door trim. And down here at the bottom I have all the numbers for the building. I have a complete set in red and a complete set in green, so that depending on what color door you have, you may want to use a green or a red number. So I also wanted to have a little bit of dimension when I attach these, so I cut off the small windows. I put them on the doors, and the numbers are on the doors, so I didn't want any dimension to this piece down here. So I cut this off, each page even with the end of the doors here, and ran it through my Zyron, put some glue on the back of it so that I would end up and put a piece of the thin chipboard behind it so that the windows have some dimension to them. Let's look at one of these buildings here. You can see hopefully that they stick up a little bit from, it may be difficult to see, but they stick up. Now, is that necessary? No, of course not. So, but that's just, you know, an option to doing this. And then, so, don't be daunted by cutting out all of these windows. I just cut with a straight edge along the long lines, and then just use my scissors in between each one of these to snip them off, and it makes quick work of cutting out all the windows. Now, I think I said in an earlier window that we didn't have to put windows on the side of a building that's next to a wall. Of course, you don't have to do that. There's enough windows in here printed on these sheets so that if you choose to do that, you have plenty of windows. So I have some here in my little bowls, and I'm not sure on this building if I want to use green windows or red windows. Oh, I think I like the green. It has more of a contrast. So let me get out some green windows. Now, the other thing to think about is which side do you want your door to be on? And on mine, I want the door to be on this rectangular side. So, and let's see, do I want to have need to think, do I want to have a red door or a green door? I usually have a contrasting door, but let's see here. I think I want to have, just kind of play with these windows a little bit. Something like this, or possibly like this. I think that's too many. Let's see. Okay, so I think I'll have one of the big windows at the top, a small window at the bottom, and I think I'll go for the red door on the front. So what I like to do is start out with the door. And get that on. And then I line up the height of, if there's more than one row of windows on a building, I use the top of the door as a guide for where the top of the window should be. Now, you can put them on any way you like, of course. Sometimes it takes a little bit of fiddling to get it just where you want it to be. And then I just kind of look at what I'm tilting it so I can see where the top of the the windows were on the other side, so I can get them all kind of lined up. The other reason that I decided to print these out on the computer was I was having a big debate. Should the lights be on in the windows, or should it be, you know, the windows be dark? How will the, you know, what do I want in the windows? And then I made these windows in Microsoft Word, and I could just use a fill technique that had this kind of dispersal of the color in there, which was a happy medium to me. It worked for, you know, and it gave some depth to the windows. So I liked how that worked out. Just kind of work your way around, taking your time to make sure they're straight. Put this guy up here a little bit more. Oops, skip somebody back here. And then once you have them all on, I support it from the inside and then just give them a burnish with my bone folder. I didn't talk much about the doors. So the doors, they're on the window and door template, the trim is, but I just cut a piece of cardstock that's a 1/2 inch by 1 1/4 inch, which gives a nice little reveal here, and added that to the door trim, and then the little single window panes, and again, those don't have any chipboard behind them, that got added to the top there. And then I have, I'm just using some tiny little pearls, I guess they are, as doorknobs. They're kind of tiny. It's hard to be coordinated about them, but there, that guy gets on there. And then decide on if you want a green number, or I think it'll be a green number. I usually do the opposite of whatever the cardstock was for this door, and this is building number 6. These circles are sized so that you can cut them out with a 3/8 inch punch, 3/8 inch circle punch. And I put score tape behind this before I punch them out. Or you could put, you know, not do that, put little raised dots on them. And I just, there's still a little white edge. I actually printed these on kind of a off-white, a light cream paper, just because the stark white is a little bit too white, I think, with this paper line. So I'm just taking my distress marker and going around that edge. And then taking that score tape, backing off, and remembering that this is a number 6 and not a 9. So that's our completed building. It's a lot of fun to see these little buildings come to life after all the prep work that you've done on the rest of the project. So this was a lot of fun to make all the little individual buildings. So yeah, that's decorating the buildings, and just repeat that for all the other ones. And I'll have a special video with how I turned building 24 into a church.